here and now, and this is urgent. This is war. Here we are in the midst of a second war, which is part of a third world war, it would seem.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. You have the Ukraine, you have the struggle right now in the West Bank, and who knows what else may jump off any minute now.
You know, it's because of the West Bank, you know, and the confrontation in north there where I was in Nablus and in Jenin, which I passed through, is that, you know, they shifted the soldiers from Gaza border to the West Bank in order to cope, you know, with all the confrontations there, okay? So they had about 12,000 soldiers in the West Bank, and around Gaza, it would seem they only had the number of soldiers that were at that rave party. They were probably all soldiers, you know, having a good time. I saw a video of one woman soldier, you know, wearing her military pants with just a bra for a top, you know, smashed out of her mind on ecstasy, you know, dancing away there. Pretty good too. And in the background is the Palestinian gliders coming in, you know, to, you know, attack the military base that they were next to. They were from the military base.
Well, you know, I think that the defeat of the Israeli army on that day, and they were defeated on that day, there's no doubt about it, indicates the determination of those soldiers to let the years and decades of humiliation and oppression of that community be thrown back in the faces of the army barracks, wherever there were forces of oppression, or those who benefited from the oppression of the Palestinians. They felt it on that day, and they will never live down the humiliation that they suffered that day.
It's an incredible revolutionary impulse, historic occasion. You know, it's unprecedented that, you know, such an oppressed people could be so strong at the same time.
Yes,
I would add,
yes.
I would add that, you know, the failure of the Israel state and the Israeli mentality is the psychological neurosis and endemic neurosis complex, like in the sense of Alfred Adler, you know, of, you know, infallibility, you know, that they are the strongest, you know, because they are the best, and that they are superior because they are the strongest, you know, this sort of, you know, psychological loop that they have going there, you know, and their macho and macha, you know, like a mentality of a Spartan state. And they assume that, you know, that the enemy that they declared, self-declared enemy, would respect that and understand that they are subjugated and that they could not possibly revolt, you know, that they thought that they had instilled a psychological effect of defeatism amongst the Palestinians, which is what their intention is, from what I experienced in the West Bank. So they failed. They thought that they had succeeded on all fronts and that they were, you know, impenetrable and infallible and immune to any sort of, you know, international law because they were sovereign. This concept of sovereignty is, you know, like incredibly fascist. And now they are, you know, in a government, except for one opposition leader, Lapid, who refused to join in the war cabinet, which included Blinken from the United States, you know, in the war cabinet, that they're going to eradicate, you know, the northern stretch of, you know, the Gaza Strip now, not even giving them much of a chance to leave, you know, to whatever, you know. And this was pre-planned, you know. I've seen the map, you know, where they had planned to send the Palestinians to in the Egyptian territory on the border, you know, with Israel on the south there. You know, this has been planned, you know, since a long time. And it was supposed to be planned together with, you know, the Egyptian regime, you know, of the old regime before the revolution from the Muslim Brotherhood. And now they're bringing it back. And this current Egyptian military regime so far is not going along with it. They're not allowing, the Palestinians to get into Egypt, because they know if they get into Egypt as refugees, that they're never going to be allowed to get back into Gaza. And Egypt doesn't want to have, 2.3 million, Palestinians, in Egypt, who are, not subject to their law, basically, and they're armed. Like it would be, a revolutionary, core to the Egyptian revolution itself, just like it was in Lebanon. It would be a repeat. So they can't, sort of allow it, for many geopolitical reasons like that. It's an incredible situation. And they're going ahead. They started the bombing already. I'm so disturbed, but we had this magnificent demonstration yesterday. That's really the solution, to such, stress and trauma, is to go to a demonstration. There was more like 5,000 at least, I couldn't count the number of people, like I was doing a video on my phone, for it, on Facebook, you can find it there still. And, it was unending, my battery ran out, I couldn't, film the whole thing. It was incredible. And all along, people were chanting, spontaneous indignation. And a majority of them were women, like, because it's the women who are being targeted now. Like, incredible. And then the baby story, like, it was all started by the settler, confirmed by, like, the military media type. And then, the prime minister of Israel, and then it goes up to Biden, and this is already the justification for genocide, because they have no other choice. Look what they did. And as it turns out, the babies that are being torn apart are the Palestinian babies now, by 548 the last time I looked.
Well, I tell you something. The imperialists and their imperialist allies in Israel, you see, there's an issue in the West that I think this is going to have to make us confront. You mentioned it. You mentioned a few minutes ago the concept of superiority, and we are victorious, and we're Spartans, and we do this and we do that. One analyst here in the U.S. shared with us on the internet that the Israeli army, except for maybe its quote unquote crack troops, are averse to being injured. They're averse to injury. And I haven't seen that even among the Ukrainians or the Russians. I haven't seen that. They don't mind getting injured or dying, really. Mm. So they're a different kind of warrior there than they are in Israel. Mm. I didn't see the aversion to taking a wound or losing a life from those militants who staged that attack 2 weeks ago. They had to have known they might not make it back. Yet many of them made it back, amazingly. Mm. But when it comes to injury and death, it's okay in the eyes of the United States, France, Great Britain. Don't know where Germany sits on this. They probably feel the same way. Italy. It's okay if women, children, babies, the elderly, animals are wiped out with U.S.-made Israeli bombs. It's okay. Their lives are meaningless. Whereas every report, be based on facts or based on lies, that an Israeli is even wounded in any kind of as part of the struggle against Zionism. Any injury is perceived as a grave injustice, and that to me goes back to the whole, at least in my lifetime, the ideal that the oppressor's life and property and human life is more valuable than that of the oppressed, and that the oppressed have no right. The oppressed have no rights that the oppressor has to respect, but the oppressor has rights that the oppressed must respect. And to me, that is the hypocrisy of even within the opposition to the Israeli military assault. If we get hung up on, oh, I don't like Hamas, oh, I don't like how they have prisoners, you can't get hung up on that. That's the wrong way, in my view, to look at it right now. Whatever contradiction you have with Hamas or with the military strategy, the whole situation wouldn't exist if Israel didn't exist. The basis of the problem is Israel and its Zionist settler occupation of the Palestinians and how they pit Palestinian against Israeli with their whole mindset and structure.
Yes,
The
no,
Israeli,
this is a whole other context, to point to Hamas as being, the national character of the Palestinian people, and that every Palestinian is, exactly the same as the leader of the Hamas, is stereotype, which is part of the white supremacist, mentality that the Occidental mentality, Ashkenazi mentality, has against the Orient, including the Oriental Jewish, Israeli population, who are this, second class there, or third class, who knows. But the Hamas is misrepresented, even amongst the left. It is misrepresented because it is not known that the charter of Hamas was remade in 2011. The initial, anti-Semitic, Islamic code that was written by Yamani, who was the wheelchair, founder of Hamas in Palestine, and who was assassinated by Israel by rocket. That has been replaced by the 2011, charter of Hamas, which is anti-Zionist, and it does not, target, Jewish people for being Jewish. It is a political question, and they call for the end of the Zionist state. But their diplomatic position, which is now pertinent, very pertinent to a ceasefire, is that they're willing to recognize the state of Israel for the sake of negotiations, if Israel is willing to recognize, Palestine, so that they can negotiate, otherwise they can't negotiate. If Israel doesn't recognize Palestine, there's no negotiations. And the reason why they don't want to have negotiations is because they don't want to recognize Palestine, because they want all the Palestinians to leave. This is this Nakba, 1948, all over again. This is a proof of what happened in the Nakba, and any, liberal Zionists, who didn't think that it was real. Well, it's real, and it's happening now, but they're still sort of, caught up in this whole sort of a national chauvinist thing that the Zionists have propagated amongst Jewish people. I have to test it. I have to go back to the Jewish Community Center, next month, in order to see if I can get through the, Zionist censorship and barrier at the front door, because, I've been liberated by, the judge, but I don't know exactly, what any ambiguity is there, if they could arrest me because I'm coming too close, to the office, of the plaintiff, in my criminal mischief case. And who knows where that office is even, and I'm not going there anyway, but they still say, I'm getting too close. It's incredible, how bizarre, Kafkaesque, this is becoming, and we haven't even set a court date yet. That'll be on the 30th of October. So the, storm of media attention that took place, both on Wednesday and yesterday. Wow, I've never seen that before. It was even more so on Wednesday, both the French and English, television medias, which I don't even have a television, and I don't even know what they actually disseminated, but there was interviews with everybody, and they were going around, it was wonderful for them, to get, firsthand interviews with Palestinians, But so we've made a breakthrough here, and also there's an international revolt happening too. The international revolt of all these demonstrations, pro-Palestinians, the solidarity demonstrations, calling for free Palestine, calling for the recognition of Palestine by the respective governments in which the demonstrations are happening, all throughout Europe, every capital, even in France, in spite of, the ban on pro-Palestinian demonstrations in France. And in England, they're trying to ban the Palestine flag. They're saying that the Palestine flag is supposed to be declared to be anti-Semitic, like Corbyn was declared to be anti-Semitic for no good reason. Incredible, And then in North America here, we've had this demonstration in Montreal I haven't seen since the demonstrations against the war in Iraq. This is huge. And New York had, oh yeah, New York was filled. I haven't seen reports of other places as well in North America. But this is just.
I want to comment on that. And this will probably be a different viewpoint. I think that the demonstrations are important, but they're not getting covered here. There's no news reports of them, period. None. And they're very small. Okay. Just like they are small. To me, a demonstration of significance is 5,000 to 500,000 people. That's significant. Not because I like those numbers, but there are 300 billion people in the country. I want a demonstration to have at least 1/10 of 1%. Okay, so I want at least 30,000 people. Because then that will force the media to generate interest. The media does not, I mean, we have Democracy Now!, we have Pacifica, we have other left or liberal left voices, but even a rag like Daily Kos, which is an online nonprofit, they don't cover the demonstrations because the reason that they don't is
they don't do international news.
Oh no, they are too pro-Zionist.
Oh,
what I'm saying to you is that the demonstrations are important, but we have to figure out how do we make the demonstrations reach critical mass so it starts to change people's opinion. The news media is pro-Zionist. They're not going to let the Palestinian cause be heard. As far as they're concerned, you can carpet bomb the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and it's okay. There is an implicit bias against the Palestinian struggle in the West, in my opinion. You've shown it with the outrageous claim that the Palestinian flag is a sign of anti-Semitism. It is not. But that's because the ideologues of the West, through Tel Aviv and London and Washington, D.C., have determined they have to demonize the Palestinian fight. So demonstrations are important. We should demonstrate. I'm not saying don't demonstrate. We have to determine, though, what is the purpose of a demonstration? What is it to get media attention? Is it to organize our forces? I mean, whatever it is, let's make sure why we're demonstrating, what we want the outcome to be. Because right now, media will not cover it. They will not know there's something in downtown LA today, or downtown Denver, or downtown San Francisco. You might get a reporter. You might get a local station to cover it. You might. If you do, you're lucky. They don't want it to be known because the United States and the West want to make sure that the rights of Palestinians do not ever come into play. For example, let me give you an example. And I don't even want this, but why are there no airlifts of Palestinians out of the Gaza? I mean, why? Well, we got to get them out of here. We got to show some support, right?
Yeah. Bring them to the USA.
Exactly. Bring them to the USA.
Yeah.
Bring them to
Palestine,
UK.
Texas. Palestine, Texas.
Wherever, yeah, wherever. I'm just saying that's not even something that you can even discuss.
Yeah.
So I'm saying when you have a situation where clearly there's a refugee crisis being created, clearly, there's no doubt about it. And no Western power, to my knowledge, I'm not saying no power to my knowledge, from China, Russia, to my knowledge, I could be wrong. China, Russia, Australia, Canada, UK, Germany, Italy, France, countries in Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Hungary. Nobody's saying y'all can come here. Germany, Nobody's even offering. Well, I'm saying when you see that,
That's
that
like
means these are international personas non grata.
this
You're
reminds me
not
of the
even you're not
Crusades,
welcome here.
This is like
Yeah,
the Crusades, when it's reported that when they occupied Jerusalem, the blood of Muslims and the Jewish people flowed together ankle deep in the alleys
right.
of Jerusalem.
So that, to me, that's, if there's any reason to demonstrate, any reason to be on social media, if there's any reason to hope to get a letter to the editor written in a paper, if there's any reason to have a Zoom meeting where that can't be Zoom bombed, is to promote the right of the people of Palestine even to exist.
Yeah, this is
And
like
right now,
this is like the Christian song "Onward, Christian Soldiers."
so here we go, marching on to war because of Jesus. Yeah. And that's what's happening. And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And just keep that in mind that no country, nobody has said, you're welcome here. We want an airlift of people from here. We can house you for a couple of years. We got a place for you to live and get a job and make them whatever. But this is not what's happening to you.
For Palestinians, just like the Ukrainians. Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, wow. You know what I mean? Well, no, the Ukrainians could come around the world. No, around the world.
Oh, yeah.
Give them housing, give them some money, give them school, everything. Where is that for Palestinians? It's nowhere. So what I'm saying to you is that's what we need to look at. Why is nobody in the world that I know of, and maybe we're not on the same wavelength as those back negotiations. Why do they not have the right to get the help? I'm just saying, why don't they have the right to leave in that fashion?
To live. Yeah.
Because they're considered
USA even cut its subsidy to the UNRWA, Refugee Relief Organization, for the Palestinians, who was cut.
Right. I mean, something, somewhere. Come on. That's because and I think some countries might be a little reluctant. Oh, you're a supporter of terrorism. You can't support them. So,
but
all of the,
like the censorship, that you referred to, that the pro-Zionist censorship that occurs, that they don't, people don't even know that the Palestinians are being genocided now, is because of the Christian Protestant, hegemony, that it has over the mentality of the culture. Here in Quebec, there's an exception because, this is an occupied territory, considered to be an occupied territory by the Francophone Quebecois nation against the British Empire, which Canada is still in. And I think that, the Black nation in the USA, would be able to understand, the plight of the Palestinians. I would think that there's, a greater consciousness, when it comes to the Blacks. No?
Let me tell you about that. There's this Black, a politician, Cory Booker, who's trying to organize Black people against actually the Palestinians by being anti-Hamas. He's a shrill of the AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. He's gone on TV and say, I'm a Black man and I'm against this and I support Israel. But you're right. I think if we go to the core of the Black nation, not the periphery, not the entertainers, not the sports speakers, no, not them, but the workers, the prisoners, the youth, whether the youth grew up in a two-parent home, one-parent home, grandmama home, or foster home. What's happening to the Palestinians has never been missed by legitimate Black organizations that are tied to freedom. We've always embraced them as our brothers and sisters, and always embraced them, and they've always embraced us. And that's why I'm saying this. Why do they not have the right to repatriation as a refugee to Europe or the United States? Because they're considered third-class citizens. That's why. It's the only reason why, man. They're not even considered worthy of being repatriated. Just kill them or let them live in a tent.
Yeah,
that's what's going on.
I think that
let me mention something else to you. I hate to interrupt you. There's a guy named Lindsey Graham, U.S. Senator from South Carolina. He said recently, this is a religious war. Do what you can to wipe them out.
Whoa.
Yes, he did. I'm not misquoting him. Do
Yeah.
what you can, whatever it takes, wipe them out.
Yeah. In Hebrew, that's called a milchuma mitzvah. I predicted this one time and I was, dismissed, it means holy war in Hebrew. This is what the ultranationalists, of the Zionists, are doing. This is their holy war. So, in Yemen, the demonstrators called for a jihad against, the holy war of the Zionists. Huh. It could be. Yeah.
And what is, I have a question though. What is Saudi Arabia saying about this? I don't know what Lebanese government, Jordanian government, Egyptian government. Can you give us any sense, or maybe
Yeah.
I shouldn't ask you, because why should you know and not me? But I have not had a chance to study their positions, their State Department statements, things from the newspapers, etc.
No, it's what they haven't said that's important, because they haven't said that they're going ahead with normalization with Israel. They refuse to recognize Israel now. They can't. Before they were negotiating, trying to see if Israel would stay out of, like Sector A, in the West Bank or something like that, some sort of concession in order to justify, the Saudi Arabian recognition of Israel. But they didn't get that. And now, the normalization is certainly going to go ahead, in the face of all the protests that are happening. They would be exposed, as being totally defunct and irrelevant and historically unnecessary, by that point, even to, their own entourage, they would, couldn't face a scandal like that. No way. This is, epic, very epic here. And if, Israel does, send in the ground troops, into Gaza, they're preparing the way, because normally, their military strategy is to flatten the place first, and then send in troops, because the troops are, the most precious thing that they have, the pillars of the state and all that, except if they get captured. You're not supposed to get captured, you see, according to the Israeli military. So if you do, you're subject to the Hannibal policy, the Hannibal code, which is that if you're captured, rather than, you being forced to be exchanged, for Palestinian prisoners, you will be left to die. And in fact, they will actually bomb you. They've actually bombed, already, 13 Israeli hostages have been killed by Israeli bombs just in this last week.
I didn't know that.
Incredible. Hannibal Code is what it's called. It's supposed to be secret. But they will, they couldn't care less, about their soldiers' lives when it doesn't serve the interests of the state. It's a state that counts.
So you're saying, therefore, there's a secret code that is the basis for the activity of the Israeli army, that if a soldier is captured or wounded and left without support, that they will kill the soldier as opposed to the soldier being captured, cared for, healed, but also held as a prisoner for exchange. I see.
Oh, no, no, only if they're captured, as a hostage, then they're subject to being bombed.
Okay.
But then Hamas at one point, threatened to cut the heads off a hostage if Israel bombed, any civilians in Gaza. And Israel has, but they haven't cut off the heads, so I think they backed off of that.
I was going to say, since there have been mass bombings of civilians without question, and since those executions haven't occurred, one must wonder two things: were the soldiers and those being held prisoner killed? That's possible. Did they decide to not do that and try another strategy? That's possible. I don't see one of the two, because if they said they're going to do this and they don't do it, that means to me they either were killed in a bombing, the people who were going to do it, as well as the prisoners, or they decide this is not a tactic we want to use now. Let's do something else.
Precisely. Yes. Because, with the Hannibal Code, that was pointless, like why kill a hostage when Israel is going to be doing it in any case, like Israel places no value upon the hostage. So for them to kill the hostage would have no effect because of this Hannibal Code thing. So
I wish we get this known. I wish we get this known more. What you just said, because that's important. Because a lot of things people don't know. For example, there's an analyst out of the Donbass. He's an American guy, and his view is that the geopolitics of the Hamas attack were based on what you just said, to undermine the Israeli-Saudi rapprochement. That was one of the reasons, to make sure that Saudi would be under great pressure to not do that.
That's true, because at this moment, why did it happen right now, except that there was the holiday and the soldiers were partying and raving tripping on ecstasy, but, the international context, was imminent, that they were going to be discussing, negotiations. So yes, this stopped it for sure.
Right. And what I'm saying also is that people on the left and the protests against the Israeli attack have to keep in mind the international context of what occurs here. We tend to not have a good geopolitical analysis or outlook. We're just upset about what happened, which is good. But how do we prevent it? And why did it happen? We have to talk about that, because there's always a why to these things. There's always a why.
Oh yeah, what I wanted to say before, was that I could see, how, Black people living in a ghetto that is occupied by the police force, and to which they're subject to, being shot and killed, for some unknown reason, is very much like, what they could perceive, the Palestinians to be subjected to, especially in the West Bank. That's what it is. The military comes in, like at any time, especially at night, to pick up people and, add to their collection of 5,000 prisoners. So it's, there's mass incarceration, in the United States. How many prisoners are there? I saw a figure like 8 million or something like that. Is that true?
I don't know. We can find out, but it's a hell of a lot. Million. And remember, also, the immigrants being held in U.S. prisons pending deportation. Remember them? Held in private prisons. Immigrants held by the Geo Company. I think they're descendants of Pinkerton or Burns Security Company. So you also have them, private prisons also, with that whole migrants.
Wow, that's a lot of millions of people. That's like a whole mass of people that can form a revolutionary corps.
If we could get to them, and if they can get out.
Yes,
we have to get to them.
It's the same thing as the Palestinians, same problem as the Palestinians.
It's very parallel. It's very parallel. I keep saying it's very parallel situation. There are some differences historically, but the same racism and classism and sexism and superiority that the American ruling class has over the Black and the brown and the red nations, the same type of superiority and thinking and behavior and practice that these Israeli Zionists and their settler supporters have over the Palestinians. It's very similar.
I would add, on top of the Anglo white supremacism, that was carried into the United States as foundation, there's also the German white supremacism that is, nearly an equal weight, of population in the American population, but which has a much greater, control over territory in the central United States. This is a very, strong, two-legged, form of white supremacism that is both Anglo and German Prussian, the Prussian mentality, of purity that Hegel talked about. It's an incredible, phenomenon in the United States. And it's got, strong legs, but, a very weak heart, because there is, the degradation of various sub-nations that are treated to subhuman, standards, of human existence cannot be tolerated by these people. And I don't expect that it will be. I can see, that similar revolts as, the Palestinians have conducted, will also be happening here and elsewhere.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. This is good. Okay. One wonders, what's going to be happening in the week to come. What with 2 U.S. aircraft carriers, off the coast of Palestine, what is this? Are they that afraid of Hamas? So, what's going on here? Let's see what's going to be happening there as well. Okay.
And also two U.S. proxy wars.
Ah,
One led by Israel, one led by Ukraine, both getting money, both now fighting for who's going to get the money and the arms. That's kind of unprecedented, also.
like so pathetic. Capitalism is such a selfish, system that it, destroys itself and eats itself from inside. This is just incredible conditions. How can this, world, tolerate this? It's just not logical.
Well, we have to bring it to an end.
Yeah.
We have to bring it to an end.